point you made. I mean, doesn't that argument about what Western countries doing in their country, doesn't that become relevant when we have Western countries tell us that what we are attempting to do is fundamentally against human rights and that we should not do so? And there have been threats of sanctions that we've heard from some quarters. And yet they criminalize polygamy, which is reverse, we accept locally. Isn't that why that is relevant? That example is relevant?
No, and because one, we have this perception that, like I mentioned before, there are some myths. And these myths are, one of them is what we are discussing here. The underlying discussion is somebody being gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender is not a Western thing. It's not something that is coming from the West. No country called UK or US or Canada packed homosexuality and came to pour it on Ghanaians and said some Ghanaians will be gay. And so let's not have this discussion around the idea that homosexuality is a Western import. It is not. We have, like you mentioned before, we have had homosexuals in Ghana, even in Africa, since the beginning of the world and wherever it may be. And all the things that many people mention, even the underpinning discussion by some of the proponents of this bill, clearly shows that homosexuality is not something that started by the West or brought in by the West. So that myth must be cleared, that, like you also mentioned, there are gays in Ghana, we've existed, we've been amongst the people for so long, they have not shown any distraction to anybody, they have not done anything that destroys our economy or destroys people, violate human rights or violate a person or cause violence against anybody. There are people who exist every day, they go to work, they are human beings like any other person, and we haven't recorded any research that has shown that a gay person has caused somebody to die or somebody to have some bad effects because they had sex. Two consenting adults went into their privacy and had sex and came out and continued their life. So I think that myth around the idea that the West is bringing in something is false. It is only the idea that we should understand that even in the West, if you look at the US state case, 50 years ago, this discussion was being had as we are having now. There was a member of parliament, just like we have Honorable Sam George sitting in your studios, also doing the same thing as is happening now. So it is not too foreign even to them that they have had this discussion before. And so it is important that we bring all into this discussion and to perspective that it is not a foreign thing, it is a human thing. Sexuality is not a foreign thing, it is a spectrum, and we are all on a sexuality spectrum. And so if somebody is found on a spectrum of having being gay, the person is not wrong, the person is a human being and must be respected and given all the human rights and protection as expected